All right, let's get started here. It is 7 o'clock and I'm calling what day is today? The Wednesday,
Fifth.
the 5th of April meeting of the Development Review Board to order. I'm Maya Hasagawa and I'm the chair. And before we start, one of our members has requested that we have a brief moment of silence for Leah, who worked at Groundworks and was killed 2 days ago. So if we can have a moment of silence. Thank you. Okay. We do have a quorum. John, have you had the baby yet?
Not yet.
Not yet.
It's gonna happen. It's gonna happen soon.
Okay. I'm going to read my opening remarks, which I read every meeting. At the DRB, we hear applications for land development in the town of Brattleboro and appeals of zoning administrator decisions. Procedurally, the Development Review Board operates on the record. Broadly, this means we take a clear record of testimony from the applicant and any interested parties, and then issue a written decision with our findings. Applicants and members of the public should be aware that as we are on the record, this is your opportunity to comment on and provide evidence related to an application. Application materials and written testimony is posted to the town website as received. Hearings may be continued at the board's discretion if materially important documents are received after the submission deadline. In the event our decision is appealed to the environmental court, the court will not take or consider additional testimony at its hearing, but will look at the evidence from our hearings, the regulations, and determine if the evidence supports the findings and decision of this board. Only interested persons that participate in this proceeding may appeal a decision made by the board. So I strongly urge all of you to speak up at this hearing. As we are on the record, we're going to ask that you affirm that your testimony will be truthful. So I'm going to ask applicants and anyone who is planning to speak to please, if you're on Zoom and you're planning to speak or present, please unmute yourself. And are you guys planning to speak? Could you please stand? I hereby affirm that
Someone has a mic on somewhere.
I'm sorry, there was an echo. There's an echo. Does somebody have a microphone on?
I read that our volume's too loud on their end and it's picking up and feedback in it room.
Probably one of you guys.
I guess you can mute it.
Just, we haven't finished yet. Please, if you're planning to speak, please unmute yourself. But turn your volume down. Okay, Carolyn, are you planning to speak?
I'm not sure, so I'm
Well,
gonna
yes,
take the oath
if
just in
you're
case.
not sure, then take the oath. Nobody, the others of you are not planning to speak. You cannot give testimony later if you don't take the oath now.
Pardon me, I know that Sheena, Rashed is likely to speak, but she's having trouble with her technology.
Well, if she comes on, then I'll swear her in.
Thank you.
Okay,
So, yeah, so John's mic seems to be the reason.
John, I think your mic is up, your volume is up very high. Okay. I hereby affirm that the evidence I give in the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth under the pains and penalties of perjury. Would you please say "I do" if you're planning to speak?
I do.
Thank you. If you're on Zoom, please mute yourselves again. Okay, applicants require a majority vote of the full board to succeed. That's 4 votes out of 7. If we do not have a full board present to hear your application, then we will consider a request to continue your application to the next public meeting. We currently have, how many people do we have? 6. We currently have 6. Yeah, 6 members present. Okay. After taking the testimony, the board will close the public hearing and may vote on your application. The board will issue a written decision within 45 days of the close of the hearing. While we may vote on an application, it is the written decision that controls the timeline for appeal. It should be noted that the town of Brattleboro is a party with an interest in land development applications. The town does not have a special status before this board. Documents provided to the board by the town planning department, town attorney, or other town departments will be considered in exactly the same way as information from the applicant and all other interested parties. And I have a motion to approve the minutes of February 15th, please.
A motion that we approve the minutes for February 15, 2023.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All in favor? I will call. John isn't
Yes.
aye. Nora?
Yes.
Michael?
Yes.
Gary?
Aye.
Tom?
Yes.
And I will vote yes. Okay, so the minutes of February 15th are approved. All interested parties took the oath. Brian, has the meeting been properly warned?
Yes, it is.
Are there any conflicts of interest or ex parte communications? Okay, I'm going to appoint Tom Mosikowski to hear all cases tonight. Okay. The first item on the agenda is 23-7, JMD Hospitality Incorporated, request for subdivision waiver of dimensional standards and local Act 250 approval to create a new lot containing the barn residences at 1382 Putney Road. Is there somebody here to?
Yes, hello. My name is John Spaxtis, and I'm here representing JM Hospitality Management for DeWolf Engineering.
Can you talk about it?
I am Uday Dolatia, also representing GMD Hospitality. Behalf of Untitled Chapter, also one of the owners.
Somebody is,
John, you need to mute your mic unless you're speaking, and when he's speaking, everyone needs to be quiet. Here's something going on his end.
oh,
Yeah, it's on John's end.
okay. One of you has a mic that's very loud and it's echoing everything. So I don't know if you have to turn your volume down, or would that help?
It would depend. I'm not sure how close the mic is. The speakers are next to the microphone they're using, but we could try that. But my guess is whoever is having the issue, they need to mute themselves whenever people are talking, and when they need to talk, everyone needs to be quiet.
Just, you got that? Okay. So, would somebody please present your project?
Okay, so this is John Spagdis from DeWolf Engineering. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Can I share my screen? Oh, currently it says that I'm disabled from sharing the screen. Can I be allowed to share the screen to show a plan?
Is it the plan that you submitted earlier?
It is the plan that, yes, it is the plan that I submitted. So if you have access to the plan, then I don't need to share my screen. I guess.
I think Steve can put it up. Okay, John, you're gonna have to mute yourself when you're not speaking.
Is it okay for me to speak now?
Yeah, he's gonna put it up in a minute.
Okay. I'll see if I can do something about turning my microphone down. I don't know if that's any better.
I don't know. Yeah. No, it's not.
Yeah, as soon as John is done speaking, he needs to mute, and then when he speaks, he unmutes. Because that way, no one's having their crossfeed over him.
Mm-hmm.
You have that, Steve?
I'm having an issue with sharing. If he wants to begin,
Do you want to start talking about your project, and
Okay. I'm
Steve
very
is gonna
sorry.
put up your diagram.
I've never had a problem with my audio before. I'm very sorry about that. In any way, I'll try to be super brief. Simply that the owner's intent was to subdivide the property such that there's one building on one parcel and the second building on a second parcel. The proposed property subdivision line is basically an L-shaped line separating the buildings, and the existing space between the buildings is 32 feet. So the property line was chosen that's centered between the two buildings to allow the maximum setback distance of it's 15.99 or 16 feet from either building to the proposed property line. And that's where the waiver comes in that the desired setback in the district for a side line is 20 feet, but there's a waiver allowable, and this for up to 5 feet on the side, and this is within that, so that it would be a requested waiver of 4 feet to go from 20 down to 16 feet. And other than that, I think I'll try and just turn my microphone off and wait to see if there's any questions and see if I can answer them one at a time by turning them on only when necessary.
Thank you. We all have the diagram, so even though Steve can't share it, we're looking at it. Are there any questions from the board? No? Yes? I have one, which is, when this project was approved before, there was a question about the stormwater runoff. And there was an agreement that the company was going to look at it and inspect it periodically, and I'm wondering whether that's been done.
I'm sorry, but I haven't been involved in any prior approval or stormwater inspection, so I'm not aware of that. I don't know if the gentleman representing J&D has any information about that.
We have not really paid attention to stormwater. I mean, the existing parcel, you know, there's no change as such, you know. We're not changing anything. The parking lot would remain the same.
I understand that. It's was a condition, I believe, of the previous approval that you would periodically inspect the stormwater.
Okay.
And so if that hasn't been done, then we're just telling you that you need to do that.
Sure, yeah.
Okay? Are there any other questions from the board? Brian?
Subdivisions do require conformance with the landscaping requirements.
Yeah.
There's a proposed condition in the draft decision.
Yes,
if the board
about
wants to apply.
about trees along the road. Is there any consideration given to landscaping or street trees along the front of the property?
This is John from DeWolf Engineering again. There's no proposal for adding or altering any landscaping in the proposal before you at this time. We understand that you may require or request a landscaping plan as a condition of any review, and the owner has said that they would accept that requirement and issue and have a landscaping plan prepared. The one thing that I would point out is that the vast majority of the green space along Route 5, along this property line, is within the highway right-of-way. And much of the existing pavement is very close to the edge of the right-of-way, with the exception of a portion of the frontage to the south, in front of that sort of the elbow area of the Quality Inn building does have a little bit more space there on the property, where there is some existing green space owned by the applicant, where there's potential for doing some landscaping.
Yeah, I think that we would, if we vote to make that a condition, that we would be requiring you to present a plan to the zoning administrator for approval.
We could do that.
Okay. Are there any other questions, comments, issues?
I have a question, not necessarily, I think it's more for the rest of the board and staff. With granting these, potentially granting the waiver for side setbacks, would that potentially limit future construction or development? or, put limits on,
You mean on this property?
yeah, on the two, the two properties that maybe.
Well,
create-
they would have to come with a plan.
Right,
Certainly seems as if it would limit construction near that new property line anyway.
right.
Yeah, I mean, they couldn't ask for a further waiver,
Mm-hmm.
if that was your question. I mean, because it wouldn't meet the guidelines.
Right. I'm just asking because when the applicant answered the dimensional waiver questions, they thought, I think, which is common interpretation, that subdividing isn't actually land development, but our land development definition does include subdivision.
Yes, yeah.
So they answered all three questions saying, well, this isn't land development, but according to our definition it actually is. But I don't think it appreciably changes, because the question where it asks, will this impair the lawful use of development of adjacent property, it has to be substantially or permanently, and I don't really, I would say minorly it does impair the future land development, but not
Yeah, if you know,
substantially.
if you've, I'm
Mhm.
sure you've driven by that
Mhm.
parcel. So there's not enough, much
For addition.
room for further development there.
Right, I'm just saying,
Yeah.
distant future, if
Right.
the buildings get redone or rebuilt or significantly renovated,
Yeah, then they would have to come.
right? Okay.
Mine?
Yeah,
I guess I often these things have a state stormwater permit associated with it, and they often require I don't know, every so often they have to be inspected and updated and verified that they are appropriate. If that is in fact the case, that may take care of our requirement for doing inspection and making sure that they are up to date. But
I suspect it did at one point have a state stormwater permit, but it's so old that
yeah,
there's
that's
no real requirement.
but it might be prudent to just to verify that it.
Yeah,
if it is, it's up to date. That's all.
you,
I can second Brian's statement that it predates the stormwater permitting, so it does not have a state operational stormwater permit for this property.
It does or does not?
does not.
Does not. Okay.
Does not.
Yes,
Thank you.
thank you.
Its system is really pretty simple. It has a couple of catch basins and they swing out into swales, so it actually looks pretty reasonable so long as it's actually conveying the water as it's
Yeah.
intended.
Yeah, I think that's what you have to make sure, is that water is actually going into where it's supposed to be going. Okay, are there any other questions? Is there any member of the public that wants to speak to this project?
I don't think any hands are up.
No?
Yeah, isn't there actually a lot more people on than
Yeah,
just those three?
I think we
No.
should leave that up so that way you can see if anyone else has a hand up.
No, I don't think there's,
Don't have any.
Yes, quite a few people.
well, Sue owns the
Staff.
connection, so. Okay, if there are no more questions or comments, is there a motion to approve the side yard setback waiver?
A motion.
And with the following conditions, that the stormwater drainage be inspected, and that a landscape plan be submitted for approval to the administrator, zoning administrator.
A motion, what mine just said.
I'll second that.
Second. I think Tom
I did.
seconded, okay. Okay, I'm going to Ask for a vote if there are no more comments. John?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. So your side setback is approved and with those two conditions. And we'll be issuing a decision soon, I hope. As soon as Brian can write it up and I can come in to sign it.
I'll have it for you tomorrow, and you can aim for Monday.
Okay. So early next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. The next item on the agenda is 23-11. Sheena Rashed, Residential Neighborhood District, request for home business approval to operate a single-chair salon in a renovated existing outbuilding at 525 Guilford Street. Are you here?
I am clearly not Sheena Rashed. She is having a great deal of trouble with technology. I was just on to support her, and so I'm curious, is there any way?
Did you take the, well,
He did.
yeah, he did take the oath. Okay.
I'm curious if I'm on the phone with Sheena, if I could relay anything that she needs to say. And to you, you know, it's obviously not the best situation, but that way you're getting the information you need.
All right.
Is that okay?
Would like to suggest to the board the application was complete, and I think it was responsive to the different review criteria. You might want to ask a couple of questions to clarify any uncertainties you might have, but it's probably sufficient to approve as submitted.
It is possible for her to dial in by phone to this Zoom meeting.
Yeah.
She can do that.
Sheena.
Can she dial in?
I'm going to call her right now and see if she could dial in. And that would be using the I'm sorry, I'm having trouble getting to her. You know, she's up on Guilford Street where there was so much damage from the storm, though I think it's how awkward.
While they take another stab at that, do you want to see if any members of the public have any comment on it?
Okay, I do have Sheena on the line now.
Okay. Well, we've all read the material, so does anybody have any questions? I have a couple. Can she tell me how large the studio building is? How many square feet?
It's 480.
Is it-
Yeah, 20 by 24.
Did it say?
Yeah.
I missed it.
Hold on.
Oh, I didn't see that.
Would you like this shared?
There.
Oh, I missed the dimensions. Never mind.
Do you see them now?
Yeah,
Okay, great.
it's 20 by 24.
That's exact, yes.
Okay. I don't think I had any. Anybody have any other questions? Okay, I think,
How are you
are
there?
you okay?
I'm married, huh?
Um,
Just so bizarre. Can you hear me?
yes,
Oh, you can hear me right now
yes, we can.
because I'm on, okay. All right.
So we were just wanting to know, I wanted to know the dimensions of the studio, and it was pointed out that I missed the small print on your diagram. And you're not planning to build any other buildings on the property or expand the parking or do anything like that, right?
No, no changes.
Okay. Does anybody have any questions?
Pretty straightforward.
Mhm.
Yep. Is there a motion?
I would move to approve
The home business.
project 2023-11 as requested.
Second.
With the condition of this
Right.
sewer only
Yeah,
water thing. Yeah.
yeah.
Oh,
There's a
alright.
condition, yeah.
On the building.
Well, did you just want to confirm if any members of the public were?
Yeah, I will.
Mhm.
Great, thank you.
Let's see, where was that written down? Oh, yeah. So you heard that condition, right, Ms. Rashed?
I actually did not, no. The only thing I heard was just the question in regards to the parking and the structure itself.
Okay, so you have a sewer-only account, right? And we're going to DPW has asked us to add a condition that a water meter be added,
Okay.
okay? So that'll be the only condition on this property.
Could we explain briefly what the rationale is for that? Are they currently using like a private well? And
Yes. I have
And
the same.
DPW wants them to hook
Yeah.
into the main?
Yeah, no, I have the same situation. When you're on the public sewer, but you have a private well, you still have to pay for the sewer service, but you're not charged the same rate as if you were drawing your own water. So it's just a special kind of an account, and you have to have that meter on your building.
It would be so you know how much, the idea would be that if you know how much water's coming in, you know how much
Like it's
sewage is going
into the
out.
sewer.
So presently, they're using the town sewer and not paying anything for it?
No, they're paying
For
a
their
residential
service.
rate.
Yeah,
And
they're
now
paying
they're
for the
being
house
used-
But now they're using it for a business.
on a separate building.
So it's gonna get a business rate now?
I believe it's a flat rate, and it would be based on usage with a meter. But they would have no way at present of knowing how much is being used because they don't have a meter. So it's just a generic rate that gets charged.
They've just been paying a flat fee, a generic
Yeah.
rate,
Yeah.
not reflecting their usage.
Yeah,
Oh,
which,
I didn't know that sort of account existed. That's
yeah, I
odd.
think it was
Yeah.
previous.
Well, just for sewer.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
Can I ask a question,
Sure.
just for clarification? Does the meter go on the building that the business will be in, the small little building, or on the house?
The house.
The house,
The
it
house.
goes where the water comes in
Okay, very good.
from your well.
Thank you, Nora.
I have this situation, so,
And Public Works actually provides the meter.
yes.
Yeah, and Public Works will come.
Okay.
Okay, with that condition,
That would
can
be,
I have
that would be my, I would like to modify my
your motion?
motion to
Okay.
include the installation of a water meter on there. Well,
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded, and is there any further discussion? Are there members of the public that wish to comment on this project? Hearing none, I'll call for a vote. John?
Aye.
Nora?
Aye.
Michael?
Aye.
Gary?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
And I will vote aye. So your request for home business approval is approved with that one condition, and you'll be getting something in writing from us, probably next week sometime.
Excellent, thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how to end this now.
Just hang up.
Just hang up.
Hit a button, something, yeah. Smash the phone if it doesn't want to work.
Oh my gosh.
You can stay on.
Okay. I think she's figured out how to get off.
Sounds that way.
Yeah.
Okay. The next item on the agenda is 2023-13, Brattleboro Common Sense for Kurt Daims, Neighborhood Residential District, appeal of a zoning violation, establishing 3 RVs as living space without a permit at 16 Washington Street. Who is going to talk about the appeal?
He hasn't been sworn in.
Yeah. You have to be sworn in. You and anybody else that's going to speak on this matter.
Where do we do that?
You just,
Oh, wait. She needs to be sworn in, but she'll be testifying.
I'm just a member of the
public.
That's fine. If you're
Okay.
gonna speak, you need to be sworn.
right, you can just stand right there.
Yeah.
They're presenting. I know, it's confusing. Okay, then let me find the words of the oath. Okay. Would you please stand? I hereby affirm that the evidence I give and the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury.
I do.
I do.
I do.
Thank you.
For testimony.
Okay, before we start, I'd just like to say that this case is about a zoning violation and whether or not there was a permit before residential or living spaces were moved onto the property. This is not about homelessness in Brattleboro. It's not about any of that. It's about whether or not there was a violation of our regulation that any building on property has to be permitted. So I just want to set the parameters before we start. Now, there are 2 new people that have joined us on Zoom. Neither of you have been sworn in. Are you planning to speak? If you're planning to speak, you must be sworn in. So please unmute yourselves. You must unmute yourself so I can hear you say aye.
Okay.
I hereby affirm that the evidence I give under the cause under consideration shall be the whole truth and nothing but the truth, under the pains and penalties of perjury. Please say I do.
I do. I do.
Okay, you can mute yourselves again. Okay, Mr. Daims.
Yes. Hello, Mr. Aver, we haven't met. Ms. Dissinger, we haven't met. I know the rest of you. Hello. First, I think there should be a preliminary note that The meeting now is an appeal, right? It's an appeal, and it's been duly warned just as an appeal. And Mr. Bannon, in his letter to you, has asked for a determination on terminology for the RVs, a request to uphold his determination, of course, and a finding about the primary structure on the property, and placing a deadline for approval of the primary structure. This is a obvious expansion of the subject.
Can I just say that all I'm going to consider tonight are the motor vehicle homes or motor homes or whatever, however you want to call them. We're not going to talk about what's happening in the main building.
Okay, good.
The question is simply, as I said, establishing 3 RVs as living space without a permit.
Good.
That's all we're going to talk about tonight.
Will I be allowed to interrogate Mr. Bannon?
Sure.
Just procedurally, if you have questions, you direct them to the chair.
Direct them to me.
Once you have completed your questions, you will direct them as
All right. Madam Chair, I would like to interrogate Mr. Bannon.
What is your question?
I have several.
Well, you can ask me.
Okay. You referring to the letter from Mr. from Mr. Stewart, in which he says.
Which letter is that? Mr. Stewart?
Mr. Stewart, yes. He's my neighbor. I live at 20 Washington Street. My neighbor is renting 3 trailers in his backyard for $500 a month per trailer. I would like to request that the fire department inspect the property immediately, as the trailers are hazardously connected to electricity via extension cords and are not connected to water or sewer. I would like to ask Mr. Bannon what he did to verify the assertion that these trailers are being rented.
Brian?
it's irrelevant.
Yeah, if we're just talking about the permit. I don't know
Yeah,
if
that's
permits
all we're
matter.
talking about.
The tenancy has no bearing on the violation.
You know,
So, also
whether
people-
they're paying for to live there or not is
Occupancy, yes.
It's a matter-
Yeah, it's a question of occupancy. Thank you.
It's a matter in the documents that have been submitted to this committee, asserting that the occupation here at 16 Washington Street is illegal under the Brattleboro rental code. And for Mr. Bannon to apply the rental code, he's got to prove that these are rented. It's not irrelevant.
It's just a permit.
No, it's a permit. You put vehicles,
Or
structures on your property that
People live in.
people can live in, whether they're paying rent or not. And the question is, did you have a permit before that to put those vehicles on your property? And I have to say that if you had requested a permit, it would have come before us, this board, to determine whether or not you could, in fact, be given a permit. So I think the question is, did you have a permit or not?
No, I'll get to that. But for me now, in the documents of this meeting, it's been asserted that the trailers fall under the rental code.
No, they come under the land use regulations.
Shall I find the documents for you?
The land use regulations. Well, we look at everything that's been submitted.
Well, then you
And
know.
we look at, and we take, as I said earlier, when you were not here, that we take whatever the staff, including Mr. Bannon, submits to us, we consider that evidence in the same way we consider any other evidence, and we don't have to agree or disagree with everything that comes from the staff
Or the public.
or the public. And so our only consideration tonight is land use regulations and whether or not you had in fact had a permit.
Wasn't I invited to make a presentation here at the beginning of this appeal?
Well,
Yeah, you
a
started asking
presentation.
questions.
Yes. And-
Now I'm being
And the
interrogated.
question is, well, the question is on the table is simply whether or not you had a permit.
But in the documents that were given to you by Mr. Bannon, he asserts that the occupation in the, at 16 Washington Street is illegal under the rental code. Can we just establish that it's not illegal that way?
It's not our purview to rule on that.
It's the
Well, then
fire
he shouldn't
department's-
have submitted that document.
We don't pay attention to it if we don't want to.
All right, fine, let's move on. May I ask why Mr. Bannon submitted the health order? What's the relevance of the health order to this?
Same.
It's the same thing. We get a lot of information which we can consider or not consider.
Okay.
And the only thing under consideration right now is whether or not trailers or motorhomes or whatever you want to call them were moved onto the property as structures without a permit.
All right. I will answer that question. They are not structures. They do not qualify as structures. So I'd like to hear Mr. Bannon's statutes and citations that establish them as structures.
Please. Okay, so what we're here for is an appeal of a zoning administrator's action, the issuance of violation notice 2023 V1, and that was issued on February 1st. And it's addressed to you, Mr. Daims, and you are hereby notified that the above referenced property of which you are the owner of record is in violation of the Brattleboro Land Use Regulations, Section 104. And this is all that the board is really concerned with tonight.
Okay.
Applicability. All land development in the town of Brattleboro requires a zoning permit issued in accordance with these regulations unless specifically exempted in these regulations. And then I go into the definition of land development from the code. Land development includes constructing, installing, reconstructing, converting, structurally altering, relocating, or enlarging any building or structure, mining, excavating, filling, or grading land, or changing or extending the use of land or structure. And then it specifies what exactly you did. The violation is the placement of 3 recreational vehicles on your property without a permit. And recreational vehicles are considered structures when they're used for the purpose of housing. When they are not in such use, they are subject to regulation as outdoor storage, which requires screening from the roadway and neighboring parcels. Now, the other documents, most of they put those up because it was of interest to some of the people in the neighborhood who had not otherwise seen those documents or had easy access to them. But the main purpose for the violation notice was trying to figure out exactly what was happening, whether the regulations on storage of RVs applied or whether there was housing going on. So, I mean, it seems evident from the health order, from the email from the neighbors, and from your past description of what's going on that in fact it is housing. So storage regulations do not apply.
I didn't hear an answer to my question about what you did to determine that they are structures. And, I'm sorry.
We consider recreational vehicles or motorhomes to be part of development. I mean, we've talked about them in a number of different locations and determined whether or not it was appropriate for them to be placed there. So, I mean, it's well established that we consider recreational vehicles as structures.
Okay, I understand, but that doesn't mean it's a legal decision. For one thing, one of the vehicles is not a recreational vehicle. Another matter is they are not structures just because you thought that in previous situations something was a structure. Under, I won't tell you the numbers right now.
It's a living, somebody lives there, right? I mean, I've read the articles in the Reformer that interviewed people that were living in these buildings. So they are dwellings. And
Another part of the document says they're not dwellings. But about the
I can
structures,
make my own decision about whether there are people living there or not.
they are
Based
not
on,
they are not housing. They do not qualify as housing. I haven't heard, please ask Mr. Bannon what statutes he uses to establish that they are housing. They are not structures because they do not have a foundation. They do not have an attached stairway, and two or three other reasons. Under statute, they do not qualify as structures.
Semantics.
yeah.
Semantics,
It's
it's,
just semantics.
And we have been,
You
I
can
mean, this
call them
board,
whatever you want.
the law calls them not structures.
are people living in them?
Some people are living in them.
Yes, well then they're dwelling units.
I can look through your documents and find where it says they are not dwelling units. If you search the documents of this court, one of them says they are not dwelling units.
So, yeah, I completely agree, they're not dwelling units, they're not anything close to being a housing unit.
That's
But
right.
there is a use on the property, it's a residential use, whether it's a single-family residential use, a rooming house, or a single-room
I'm sorry, go
occupancy.
back a sentence, I didn't hear.
I said there is a residential use on the property, whether it's a single-family use, a single-room occupancy, or a rooming house, does not matter. Placing these constructs on the property was an expansion of that use because you were renting out or otherwise having people live in those structures. So an expansion of a use is land development under the code.
Your property, 16 Washington Street, is zoned as a single-family dwelling unit.
I think
There was-
we're getting out of turn here. I'm
Yeah,
still-
but it's a single, that means your property
Wasn't I
was,
making a presentation when I wasn't, if not interrogating Mr. Bannon? Wasn't it my turn to make a presentation?
I'm
until-
trying to explain to you why these vehicles, whatever
Are an
you want
extension
to
of
call
use.
them, are an expansion of a single-family dwelling, which is what your property was changed. It was changed from a three-family to a single family,
I get it.
right?
I can address that point.
And that happened in 2012, right?
I don't know the exact date. It goes back and forth depending on the exigencies of loans from the bank. It can be changed one way or the other.
Well, your current permit is for a single-family dwelling. So that means on your property, you only have one dwelling unit.
We have two, and they're legal. We have, but I think I can skip to the chase here about the extension of use. We have not extended the use. Brattleboro Common Sense, that operates the emergency shelter, is registered with the state as a nonprofit. And as this nonprofit, it has operated and done different projects on that land pursuant to its charter. Its charter and mission statement are about the things that we do, and they are legally documented. we are registered to operate as Brattleboro Common Sense at that address. And in serving social justice and our charter, our mission statement, which includes social justice and economic justice, the relief of homelessness is clearly part of it. We've been doing this kind of thing for years. The use of that land has included the Fix It project, in which people come to the land and have things fixed for free. It's included fixing automobiles, and we've done that as part of the use of the land. It was not an extension, it is the original purpose, fitting the original purpose of the organization going back to 2012. And we've also manufactured banners for the organization and banners for other organizations. So we do lots of things there.
That's not relevant to this, because
I dare say that what we do there, you want to say is an extension of the use. It's right along with the use that we have been doing.
Yes.
It's not a change of use.
Are you the owner of the property? According to the land records, you are the owner of the property,
Yeah.
right? So just because you're the owner of the property does not mean that you can move additional structures, or whatever we're going to call them, onto your property in which you admit that people are living. You did not have a permit to do that. And that's the only thing common sense can do, make banners and run Fix It and do whatever.
And fix automobiles.
But you cannot have additional dwelling units placed on your property.
We just heard
which is
Mr.
a
Bannon say they're
single-
not dwelling units.
Mr. Bannon can call them whatever he wants. We can consider, the board can consider them, and we will vote on it, whether we consider them dwelling units. There are people living in them. Is that not true?
Yeah.
Yes, okay.
They're not an extension of use. They are consistent with the use that is permitted by the state of Vermont.
Steve?
Just for the sake of record, within the Brattleboro Land Use and Development Regulations, section 531S, subsection 17, the definition of structure as defined in 24 VSA 430327 means an assembly of materials for occupancy or use. Just thought that might be clarifying.
Yeah, thank you. Are there, I'm gonna let some members of the public speak, all right? Because so far, I haven't heard in your presentation anything that goes to whether or not you had a permit.
I admit, we don't have a permit.
Okay. Are there members of the public that would like to speak?
I would like to speak.
Can you?
Would you like me to come up here?
Yeah, please. And state your name and address, please.
My name is Eric Stewart. I live at 20 Washington Street. Directly next door to Mr. Daims. My windows and my kitchen overlook his property, and I've watched this unfold since December. I first became concerned when one of his tenants approached me and told me that, described his home as a SRO, that they're renting out rooms, which I don't have a problem with, and then also told me about the emergency RV project in the backyard and said that they were paying $15 a night to stay there. This has also been confirmed by other tenants who told me about a Craigslist ad that they answered, and upon looking at the Craigslist ad, it said that it was charging a sliding scale fee of $10 to $20. During the period of about January to February, there were at times 3 different people living in each unit. So that's 9 total people living in 3 RVs. This is not permitted. I do not believe it should be permitted. Not to speak on the merits of the project at all, I would just say that Mr. Daims has not been open to listening to other perspectives. He has not been open to compromise. He is engaging in hostile negotiations. I fundamentally resent being bullied and gaslit by my neighbors into accepting this absurd project that has cost my family a lot of stress and anxiety. The city has given him so many different off-ramps to stop and to de-escalate. His behavior is not indicative of somebody who is operating altruistically. His behavior is indicative of somebody, of a stubborn individual with an axe to grind. And I would encourage the board that we live in a rules-based society in which people are not allowed to just bully their way into a situation and change the rules ad hoc because they decide to do it. Regardless of whether or not he thinks he's doing something good, he is providing substandard housing, unpermitted, and frankly doing it in a way that violates fundamental human rights, which is access to running water and sewer. Furthermore, Mr. Daims has put a lot of time and energy into disparaging my family on social media, accusing us of being prejudiced, and even going so far as to accuse us of planting human feces in his backyard. This is unacceptable behavior, and he has clearly demonstrated that he is not a competent administrator of this project. And I would like the board to fully use all of its powers to bring this matter to a close, whether that's the imposition of fines so that this matter may cease and desist immediately. Because frankly, I'm sick of it. I've had it. I'm done. And I'll just reiterate the point that I will not be bullied and intimidated into
Point of order, how is this relevant?
Excuse me, let him speak.
I will not be bullied and intimidated into accepting your behavior. The last thing I will say is that they are a clear and present fire danger, right? That has been verified through several, and so that's what, but that's what concerns me about my property. If these catch on fire, what happens to my property? So that's the last thing I'll say.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. May I respond?
No.
Not now. Is there anybody else from the public that wishes to speak? Yes.
My name is Tom Oxholm. I live at 197 South Main Street, which is basically the opposite side of Eric's property. We share kind of the same, roughly the same border, but on different sides of 16 Washington Street. My questions are more questions for you about zoning. You made it very clear that Kurt Daims is the owner of this property. If that is the case, why do people continue to indulge this as Brattleboro common sense, which does not have any authority to do anything at this property? It is a registered 501c4 organization, which means it's a nonprofit. In that capacity, he has certain stipulations he has to follow as a nonprofit in terms of filing papers. I could not find anything online that has been done recently in the last 4 years. I know I'm getting to my point. He brought up mission statement of their organization, which I pulled off their website, which it has nothing to do, it's all about political activism. It's not about becoming landlords or renting property. This is a zoning issue which Brattleboro common sense really has no standing in. And he's hiding behind that, and that shouldn't be allowed to continue. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Yes?
My name is Jean Marie Giaquinto, I'm a member of the homeless community. Mr. Daims has asked me to address some of the safety concerns at Groundwork Shelter.
We're not talking about.
That's fine,
we're not
I'm just
talking about
presenting, I'm just presenting what he's asked me to do.
It's not relevant.
That's fine, thank you.
Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak?
There's a hand up on Zoom.
Yes?
Carolyn?
Yes, thank you. Carolyn Conrad, I live on Pellet Street. My property abuts across one lawn, abuts the back of the property in question. And I just want to reiterate what I think the board has said, and also Mr. Bannon has said. This is a permitting question. I think everyone can agree that there was no permit. And the reality is, if a permit had been applied for, it would not have been approved, which is why I think a permit was never sought. And I think this is pretty clear cut that because there is no permit, Mr. Daims is in violation and that his appeal should not be successful.
Thank you. Are there any other members of the public that wish to speak? Taylor?
Hi. I live at 20 Washington. I'm Eric's wife. I share a property boundary with Kurt Daims. I just want to say that this has been going on. It's in its 6th month that the RVs have been there since November. And we moved into our house November 1st, and then they appeared in that first month. I was looking back at when I first contacted Brian Bannon about it. I think it was sometime in December by phone, and then in January in writing, early January, and then started filing, actual complaints, not just emailing. I'm like losing my train of thought here. One thing I want to say is that Kurt Daims has lied through his teeth about this project, about his neighbors, made up accusations about me, said disparaging things about my family targeting us on social media. Like Eric, I have had it. I feel like we have been cursed since we moved into this house. But I do have a point to say here.
Okay.
And that is, given that he has lied so much, you cannot trust what he says. And as long as those RVs are back there, he's going to be renting them out. And I encourage the board to force him to move them, because he's like a snake in the grass. People are going to be living in there, sneaking in and out, and he's going to just continue with this nonsense. So you can, fine him, not give him a permit, but they've got to go or he's going to keep up with the shenanigans. And it's not fair to the neighbors and to the community.
Thank you. Brian?
Just as a point to people here in the room and on Zoom, this board is about applying the rules of the land use regulations in an even-handed manner, and it can get passionate sometimes, and there can be strong disagreements between property owners or neighbors, and we always ask that people try and avoid character attacks or try and just keep things
to the topic.
Yes, to the extent you can, even if passion is warranted. Then just a quick thing on the actual power of the board. The board is going to find that this violation is warranted, or they're going to overturn it. And then It doesn't have the power to apply fines, and it doesn't have the power to do injunctive relief. What will happen is the town will go to the Environmental Division of Superior Court. We'll ask the court to do an injunction to remove the RVs and come into compliance with the land use regulation. And we'll ask them to apply fines of up to $200 a day from the date the violation notice was issued. So from February 1st. The court will adjust it based on the severity or any mitigating factors they might see, or aggregating factors. $200 a day is something like that survivalist gun range violation that's been in court recently. So probably considerably less than $200 a day, but substantial fines.
May I speak?
You can say one thing and then I'm going to call the question.
I'll have a question for him.
Yeah.
Before or
Go ahead.
after? Do you want me to ask? You can go ahead, Kurt.
Go ahead.
I don't understand why Mr. Stewart is allowed to vilify me at length in a way that was irrelevant to the.
I'm sorry, I should have cut him off. I agree.
Yeah.
On one hand, on the other hand, I like to let people, the public, have their say.
Yeah, and
So
then
it's a balancing act, and.
When Ms. Giaquinto wants to say something, you don't want the public to speak.
She was gonna talk about conditions at groundworks and talk about homelessness, and that's not in common sense, and that is not relevant to whether the
Well,
issue
neither was what
of the
Mr.
permit.
Stewart said.
Yeah.
So you allow Mr. Stewart, but you don't allow Ms. Giaquinto. I'll address some of the things Mr. Stewart said. Mr. Stewart, I'm very sorry if you were vilified
No.
on, I'm sorry? If you were vilified, I'm very sorry if Mr. Stewart was vilified on Facebook or something. I never vilified him. I never said anything about his family.
Okay, that's fine.
Then about, maybe he saw a comment on one of the Facebook posts. I don't write all the comments.
Okay, that's fine.
Then about
Go ahead, Tom.
about the rent, Ms. Conrad, no, one of the ladies who was there before is not there now. She said that we did rent. Mr. Stewart says we did rent. We were not renting. I never received 1 penny of rent.
That's fine.
And
But it's
so
not
can we?
relevant to whether or not you had a permit.
Right,
Tom?
and then about the process of this meeting. I don't think you have been fair, and I hope it's been recorded. I think you, Ms. Hayakawa, have shown.
It's Hasagawa.
I'm sorry, Ms. Hasagawa. I'm sorry, Chairwoman Hasagawa, you have been openly hostile and prejudicial. I hope we recorded this.
Tom?
Tom, yeah.
Mr. Daims, are the RVs registered as vehicles?
Yes. Their registration's probably expired, but they are registered as vehicles. And they're insured as vehicles.
They're currently insured as vehicles?
Yeah.
Do they have license plates? None of those are expired?
Yes.
But did he say they were expired?
Yeah, I thought
So they're not registered?
Right.
Okay.
Okay. Are there any other questions from members of the board? Hearing none. Is there a motion?
I would like to speak some more.
Are you going to speak about the permit, or are you
No,
going
I would like to speak about the history of my relations to the town about this project, which are very crucial because they have been contradicted.
No, I'm sorry. We're talking, our
Well,
vote
then
tonight
I
is
will go
going-
ahead anyway.
Our vote
I
tonight
have
is
been
going
in
to-
contact with the town since last summer. I have spoken about this
Excuse me.
project. Excuse me.
You're out of order.
Then call the police. I'm sorry. I am out of order. But in a matter of vital concern to me, you have been obstructing my rights, Madam Chairwoman. And I will beg again to proceed without interruption. But I will proceed with interruption.
Are you going to talk about the permit issue?
Yes.
Do you
I
have a permit or not?
I have
Louis?
asked the town in various offices about developing the permitting process to allow this kind of new project, which is so seriously needed by our town. I have made presentation to the select board 4 times. No, I haven't, but other people in my organization have made presentations to the select board 4 times in 2 years. And we've had no response. I have been in contact with Mr. Bannon and Mr. Mozakowski about developing the rules. We have not been trying to evade the rules. We have been right up front with the town government. And it's draconian at this point for this committee to think of crushing my project, my organization, in such a gross way, when we could have been engaged, as I have been trying to do since 2 years ago.
There is a way, the way to apply for a permit is very clear. It's in the land use regulations.
It's not clear.
It's on the website.
It's not clear. We can't even decide whether it's a dwelling unit or a structure and so forth and so on. Your own people can't decide what this is, and it's not clear how to apply for a permit.
Maya, do you want me to call the police?
No, it's fine. We have had a lot of people come and apply. They go through the process of applying for a permit. It's set out on the website for the Development Review Board. It's in the land use regulations.
I'm recording.
So I'm not sure, well, it's being recorded by VCTV.
Oh, it is? Okay, good.
So there was a way for you to have applied for a permit before anything.
But it wasn't clear, because we can't decide whether it's a dwelling unit or a structure or so forth and so on.
You could have asked for a permit to move the
That's my point. I
vehicles
have been
onto-
asking. I've been talking to various people in town government. My boss has been talking to people in town government, and it's just
Well,
hard.
I'm sorry, we haven't seen an application. If you had come to us with an application, there are forms that you fill out, there's information
It
that
doesn't
you
fit the
provide.
forms.
Yes, it does. We have had people come and ask to put the same kind of vehicles, or whatever you want to call them, on their property, and we have looked at it.
For
and we
emergency
have-
shelter.
Not for emergency
Well, you see,
shelter.
that's different. It's different. It's
It
very
doesn't have
different.
anything to do with whether it's for an emergency
The use
shelter.
doesn't have to do? Of course the use has to do with it.
No, it doesn't.
That's in your documents. It's all about use. Is it as an extension of use or not? And now you're saying the use doesn't matter?
I'm just saying that the moving of vehicles is a question of land development, and you did not have a permit for it.
That's true, and I tried, and it doesn't fit. It's a new kind of thing. In an emergency world where Brattleboro is getting overwhelmed with its homelessness accommodations and occupations, it's very difficult, and it doesn't fit into anything. So that's why I've been talking to the town for 8 months now, on and off, trying to get a new way. We are not hiding from the rules, as Mr. Stewart says. We are right out there. We are at public meetings asking for the town to participate in this necessary project. And that's what should be doing now, not punishing us for developing something the town needs.
Is there a motion, please, to, if there are no other questions from the board? Members of the board, is there a motion to uphold the decision of the zoning administrator?
I'd like to go into an executive.
Deliberative.
Deliberative session?
Yeah, deliberative session, if that's okay.
Fine.
Second.
It's been
Second,
moved and
Commissioner.
seconded that we go into deliberative session. So what that means is that only the board will remain in the room, and we will discuss the question. If ever, is there any disagreement to going into deliberative session? Sure.
Oh, will we find the results after the deliberative session, so we should hang out?
No.
No, okay, just, that's all I was asking.
No.
Well, they will find out, but not.
Yeah,
Not
you'll find out, but not tonight.
Not tonight.
So, John, are you okay going into executive session?
Deliberative.
Deliberative session.
So we'll just clear up here.
Yes. Nora?
Yes.
Yes.
Here? Okay.
Okay.
No, just, so the board is going to enter deliberative session now, and once they come out of it, they'll close the meeting, and I'll contact you after I've heard from them in the morning and tell you all what their decision was. But the deliberative session is private, so all of us should vacate the room and stop filming. Thank you.